kitchen, and today I'm going to show you how I make my basic yeast bread loaf. I'm going to make a double batch, so I'm going to make 2 loaves because if I make bread, 1 loaf will disappear before the day is through, and I need to have bread for the week for lunches for the girls to take to school with them and just for everyday eating. So we're going to show you how we make our regular everyday yeast risen loaf. Now our sourdough loaf, we've been playing with that. I still have my sourdough. Actually made some pancakes this morning. But we're going to just make a basic loaf today, and I thought I've never shown you how to do that, so I'm going to take you along for this ride too. So what is going to go in here, we're going to have a couple of dough amendments that may or may not be unusual to you, but we're going to start with yeast. This is my yeast, and because my jar is a little low, I'm going to be filling it up. This is how I keep my yeast in the freezer. I buy these in bulk and then I keep them in my freezer because that literally suspends the expiration date. You don't even have to look at that. So we're going to yeast, water, some butter, some flour, some potato flakes, some sugar, some salt, and some instant dry milk. The milk and the potato flakes are really they're fabulous amendments. They keep your dough soft, moist, lofty, and delicious. So I'm going to clear this. I will put the recipe on my website, and you'll be able to refer to that and print it out if you like. So I'm going to move all this out of the way so I can bring my bowl over. And then I'm just going to go at it like I would any other day, even if you weren't here. So I bake bread every weekend without fail. Today I'm baking bread and making tortillas because Molly has really taken a shine to those homemade tortillas, and she wants me to make them for wrap sandwiches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse out my bowl, and I'm going to get my water warm. And since I'm making a double batch, I'm going to put in 2 cups of water, warm water. Now I've got my hot water running here, but because that bowl is cold, it's gonna cool it down a bit. It's perfect, just like bath water when you say ah instead of ouch. You know, your water is just right. Okay, and now we're gonna put in our yeast, and I need 5 teaspoons. So I need a tablespoon because that's 3 teaspoons and 2 extra teaspoons. And there's probably just enough. There we go. And I'm going to put a dash in more for good measure. No worries. And then the next thing, I'm going to throw my butter in here, but I'm going to kind of break it up a bit with my paring knife. Nothing special. I'm just kind of getting it out of that big block. It's at room temperature, so it's nice and soft. It's not melted though, so in that goes. Salt. I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt, like that, because the recipe calls for a teaspoon and a quarter for 1 loaf, but my butter is salted, so I'm going to compensate for that. And then we put 3 tablespoons of sugar for 1 loaf, so I'm going to put 6 tablespoons of sugar, which is a quarter of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. Because a quarter of a cup is 4 tablespoons, right? And then 2 extra. That makes 6 tablespoons for a double batch. So now we've got our water, yeast, salt, sugar, butter in there. And then our milk, our dry milk, is a quarter of a cup per loaf. So there's a quarter of a cup. There goes 1. And that's really the rest of this packet. These packets are about a cup. And then we've got our potato flakes. So we're going to do a half a cup of potato flakes per recipe. So we're going to do a cup of potato flakes. So 4 of these quarter cup measures.
Potato bread then?
Not technically, but this is, I put potato flakes in almost all my yeast risen bread because it makes for a very tender dough. And then we're going to put 3 cups of flour in here. And we're going to put it on the machine. Actually, we're going to put 6 cups of flour. So there's 1, 2, 3. And you notice I'm not doing a very exact measurement. We'll call that 4. And then we crack open this new bag. Because we'll be able to adjust if we don't put quite as much flour as we should. It's just, you know, the weather has a lot to do with how wet or dry your dough ends up being. So there's 5. And I like to fluff my flour in the bag a little before I actually dip into it, because this is really technically not how you should measure your flour, but someday I'll show you exactly how you should do that. If you want to get really technical and fancy, you can weigh your flour. And that's how they do it in all the bakeries, is they weigh it. Because it's a more accurate way to measure your ingredients. So let's get this started. We're going to put it on a 2, for those of you who have a KitchenAid. You never want to go over a 2 when you are kneading bread, or it will void your warranty. Of course, I don't know how they're going to know that. Unless you tell them.
You can put it on video.
That's true. For those of us dumb enough to do videos of it. Of course, then if we do a video of it and try to do that, then, you know, the internet spies might tell on you. You just never know. Okay.
Google tell on us.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, now I see that my dough is a little bit dry here, so I'm going to just throw in a little bit extra water and get that dough going. And you would be amazed at how little extra water it actually takes to get that dough to become cohesive. You don't want it too wet, because if it's too wet, then you're going to end up having to add more flour, and that's just going to mess up your ratios, and your bread isn't going to come out right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach for a rubber spatula here. And I'm just going to give it a little help. There we go. I find that when I make a double batch of bread, this usually happens. So a lot of times I will actually make separate batches of dough, 1 loaf at a time. But today, I have a lot to do. We're shampooing carpet in the bedrooms, and I gotta make a pot roast later in the pressure cooker, which I'm most likely gonna share with you. And you can see that the dough is coming together now nicely. And I'm going to turn it off and feel it. You don't want to add anything else. It's just perfect. Now we're going to knead for 7 minutes. So I'm going to let this knead for 7 minutes, and when it's done, I'll come back and show you what we do next. Okay, we're done. The mixer needs a break too. I actually kneaded this for 10 minutes. I reset the timer for an extra 3 minutes because the dough is, we've got a lot of dough here. So, you know, we want to make sure that we build up enough gluten in there. And this dough feels really wonderful. It's not sticky. It's beautiful. It's not sticking in your hand. It's nice and soft. It's very supple. It's exactly where you want it. When you touch this bread dough, if you're not familiar with how it should feel, it shouldn't stick to your hand. It should bend freely, and it should just be very pliable, and it should feel really like, I mean, for the lack of a better term, this should feel like your little baby's tushy. That's exactly how it should feel. It should feel like a baby tushy. Now, I'm going to set this here for just a second.
Or feel your own tushy if you don't have one.
Well, it's just not the same. A grown-up tushy don't feel like a baby tushy. Okay. I sprayed my bowl. I'm just going to use the same bowl. I'm going to spray the top. If you don't want to spray it, that's fine. Put a little oil in the bottom. and then roll the dough around in there. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, and then I'm going to cover it with a dish towel, and I'm going to set it on the back of my stove to rise. This is going to take about an hour, hour and a half to rise. And then we're going to come back and form it into 2 loaves, into a couple of bread pans, and I'll be back when it's time to do that. All right, we're back, and it has been just about an hour, and we're more than double in size, so we're ready to go. At this point, I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. I'm going to bring this over here. Take my plastic wrap off.
Okay, poke it.
Seriously?
Go ahead.
You can't stand it, can you? Are your hands clean?
Huh? I just washed
Go ahead, honey.
I just washed them yesterday.
Go ahead, poke it.
I just washed them yesterday.
Okay, great. I'm going to just let this come out of the bowl onto the board. And you know my philosophy if you've watched me for any amount of time. Don't punch your dough.
Be nice to your dough.
What did it do to you to deserve such abuse? You just want to gently get rid of those air pockets that are in there. That's all. Deflate it nice and gentle. Okay? Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide this now into 3 loaves, because when you divide this dough into 2 loaves, which is a double batch, the bread gets so high that you make such a large sandwich with it that my girls don't like that. Plus, you can easily get three loaves out of what's here. And that's all you have to do. And then what we'll do is I'm just gonna kind of mold this. I'm not going to do anything to it except shape it like this. And here's my bread pan. Press it down in there. And I'm going to set it aside. Do the other. And when you divide your dough into 3, you're always going to have one that's bigger than the other 2. So don't sweat it. It's just bread, right? What I do is then I'll just pick my smallest loaf and we'll have it with dinner. Or, you know, I don't know about you, but if you make bread, how quick does somebody want to cut into those loaves when they come out of the oven? Because in my house, you know, Rick's always like, I guess they're too hot to eat, huh? And there's no substitute for fresh baked bread, in my opinion.
It's just torture smelling it while it's baking.
And on the bottom, when I do this, I kind of pinch it so that it's kind of one seam. I don't want a big hole. Like that. I don't know if you can hear Molly's practicing her clarinet. And this one will be the bigger one. I can already tell. Usually the one in the middle, if I cut it in 3, and the one in the middle is usually the one that ends up being the largest one. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I am going to just gently cover these with I'm not going to kind of seal them because then as it rises up then it won't stick. But I'm going to cover them with plastic wrap, and I'm going to cover them with a dish towel. And I'm just going to set them over here on my stove, and I'm going to let them rise. And in about 45 minutes or so, we're going to come back and check them. If you live at a higher altitude, your rising time is always going to take longer. So what takes me an hour for the first rise may take you 2 hours for the first rise. And what takes me 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes for the second rise may take you double that. It seriously just depends on a lot of things. how warm your kitchen is, what your altitude is. Altitude affects a lot of things, even our canning. So when these are ready to go in the oven, I preheated my oven at the beginning of this segment. Preheated my oven to 350 degrees. And I'm going to just cover them. I'll probably get another dishcloth and just overlap it. I like to do that. You don't have to. I just like to. It kind of gives them a nice little blanket. So when these are ready to go in the oven, I'll come back and I'll show you what they look like. So we'll be back. It's been just about 45 minutes and these are ready to go in the oven. They're obviously doubled in size. And they're almost even for the most part. I thought one was going to be slightly larger and one still may be slightly larger. We'll see when it comes out of the oven. Okay, so oven's preheated to 350. We're going to put it in here all at once. I'm going to bake this for 20 minutes at 350. After 20 minutes is up and your timer goes off, you're going to put a piece of aluminum foil over all 3 loaves. Just stick it right on top while it's in the oven and then bake it for another 20 minutes longer. Just like that. We'll close the door quickly. All right, we'll be back when it's time to put the foil on. It's been just about 20 minutes, and that's where we are. Those loaves of bread look exactly like we want them to look. And then all I'm going to do now is I got a sheet of foil here. I probably need to just fold this under a bit. And I'm just going to lay it on top. Now what this is going to do is it's going to deflect the heat so that the top doesn't get too brown, but the inside will continue to cook. Now we're going to set our timer for another 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes, these will be ready to come out of the oven. So when that happens, I'll come back. Our extra 20 minutes is up, so just take your foil out of the oven and take your bread out of the oven. Look how pretty that is. And then what I like to do, I don't like my bread to sit in the pans. Just immediately take it out of your pans and put it on a rack so that it doesn't get soggy. I don't know if you can hear that. Hollow. It's perfect. Just set them to cool. And you have bread for the week.
Just too hot to eat, huh?
It's too hot to eat, honey. You'd figure with repetition, you'd figure that answer out. All right. So, whoopsie. Yeah. He's got an obstacle course behind him. The dogs are on the floor. So, that's how I make my everyday yeast risen loaf. And I think you should give it a try because everyone should know how to make bread. All kinds of bread. I'm also going to start doing some unleavened, well, not yeast risen, but I'm going to start doing some. I found a recipe for a whole wheat style. It's like a biscuit, but it's a whole wheat bread, and you make it in a sheet in a pan, and you can use it like as a biscuit or as a sandwich bread. It looked really good, and it's made with oatmeal and wheat flour. So I'm going to give that a try soon. I hope you try this, and I hope you love it. And until next time, I'll see ya.